Well, the political satire website The Babylon Bee is asking the Supreme Court to uphold recently passed laws in Florida and Texas that ban the alleged censorship of conservative viewpoints by social media companies. Let's bring in board-certified medical doctor Houman Hamadi, Babylon Bee CEO Seth Dillon, and First Liberty Institute Senior Counsel Jeremy Dice. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming on. So the Babylon Bee and not the Bee are now asking the Supreme Court to uphold laws banning social media censorship. Quoting here, the two sites argued that major social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube assert the unlimited and unilateral right to censor, deplatform, or shadow ban disfavored users, disfavored content, and disfavored viewpoints. To you, Seth Dillon, what is it exactly that you're looking for? What's the cause?
Well, I'd like to see an end to viewpoint discrimination on these platforms. You know, they originally sold themselves to us as platforms for free expression without barriers. That's a direct quote from, you know, Twitter's old mission statement. So that's how they position themselves, but then you run into all these barriers. You know, we've been censored for hateful conduct and misinformation when really it's just the content of the speech that they don't like. They've built their ideology into the terms of service and they enforce it as if it's, you know, objective and fair, when it's really not. It comes down on one side and affects one side of the equation. So I'd like to see an end to viewpoint discrimination.
Yeah, I think it's a fair ask. You mentioned Twitter. First Liberty press release says, quoting here, nowhere in Twitter's, Facebook's, or Instagram's user agreements will one find a provision announcing that their standards will be applied one way for conservatives and another way for everyone else. Systematically inconsistent censorship under cover of supposedly neutral standards is dishonesty, plain and simple. Jeremy, I mean, this is exactly where you come in. It's true, and we learned a lot about this in the Twitter files.
Yeah, look, we've got a great tradition in this country of having a forum for free speech really almost everywhere you go, except if you happen to go on social media. Look, if social media companies want to be able to censor viewpoints that they don't like Seth was just talking about, then they should be at least upfront about that and tell you that they're going to do that very thing. The fact that they don't tell you that and then they go about censoring speech that they don't like, particularly religious speech, it seems, is, I think, a real sincere problem that we have in this country. I'm eager for the Supreme Court on Monday to hear these arguments over two laws that Florida and Texas have passed that are just trying to say, look, be upfront with everybody and then apply these policies fairly. That seems to be the American way.
Yeah, I mean, you're a doctor by trade, Dr. Hamadi, but you were a big advocate of fighting for free speech and fighting to limit and get rid of censorship. And it worked. I mean, listen, there was a lot of things that we learned in COVID and beyond.
There was, Trace. And the problem with censorship when it came to any healthcare decisions during the pandemic was that people, as I've said before many times, began to believe that they're the only person that shares that viewpoint. People began to say, you know what, I'm the only person that thinks that, you know, children as young as 6 months old maybe shouldn't get the vaccine because there isn't evidence, because I don't see anyone else saying it. Right. Because anyone else who was saying it was censored. And it creates this self-fulfilling kind of notion, and it gets people to actually believe that they're crazy. Yeah. And it's gaslighting almost of yourself. And it worked to a great degree. There were a lot of doctors who completely changed their viewpoints because they thought they were absolutely alone, and they shifted their recommendations against their own best judgment. Yeah. And when that happens, you create harm, and that was totally inappropriate.
And Seth, you believe, I mean, you've talked about this earlier, that, listen, there are a couple of states that are getting this right, and maybe we need to follow that path.
Yeah, Texas, I like the Texas law, I like the Florida law. You know, they're trying to eliminate viewpoint discrimination by saying that this needs to be done fairly. And I agree, you know, that censorship, one of the main problems with censorship is that it prevents debate. It prevents you from getting to the truth by actually having a battle of ideas play out in the public square. You know, you shut it down and just decide that one side is right. And with COVID, that was a great example, because COVID, you had a situation where they were saying, well, we censored based on what we knew at the time. Right. Well, if that's true, if knowledge changes over time, then you can't ever it's a knockdown argument against censorship, because the minute you start censoring what people are saying, you may find out tomorrow that you censored the wrong thing. So knowledge changing over time is an argument against censorship.
And Jeremy, this administration has fought against religious freedom again and again.
Over and over again. Look, if you look through the social media's censorship over the last couple of years, you'll find everybody from John Piper to Franklin Graham to, well, Seth Dillon being censored on social media for things that they have said from a religious point of view. That goes, again, against everything that this country has stood for. We have long been a country that has promoted the idea that more speech is better than less speech. And so why social media companies continue to push against that notion, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I got to go, Humam, but we have said robust debate. You know, conformity is the enemy of science and a lot of things. Wrap us up, 15 seconds.
Science happens, as Seth was saying, only through debate. We have to actually decide via challenging each other what is true and what is not. And when you shut down that debate, the truth about science gets shut down and people begin to believe things that are actually factually wrong.
It's a very strong argument. Gentlemen, thank you all. Well, in a Fox News exclusive tonight, we take you on board a U.S. Navy carrier strike